COVID-19, why you do this to me? I really don't like being stuck in quarantine. I have no toilet paper, I don't even have a snack. Hey, coronavirus, I want my life back.
Good evening. Yeah, we had some severe thunderstorm watch in effect right now. I was just going to glance at the weather radar and see what's happening. It looks like it's all east of us. Looks like if you're up in the... no, it looks like it's all up near Algonquin Park and up into areas like Trout Creek and that. So it looks like we're not really going to get anything. So that's good. That's good. It got warm, didn't it? It really got warm. How is everybody doing tonight? This is episode 74, motoring our way to episode 100. We are going to talk about hope today. If you remember, Asante Haughton was on a couple of days ago, and we were talking at that point about all the problems going on south of the border and what we could do to look at things positively. Well, today we're going to talk about hope. And it's very easy to lose hope. Extremely easy. And if you've been watching the news all day, shame on you. I am wagging my finger at you. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. It is just depressing, and it gets on. It increases your stress and anxiety levels. Something fierce. So turn it off. Turn it off, my friends. Just watch it 5 or 10 minutes a day. You'll get updates on your phone and all things like that. You're not going to miss anything. But sitting there hour for hour for hour is going to make you lose hope. But we are going to talk about ways that if you have lost hope, ways to get it back. Ways to get it back. But right now, what's one of the most important things we do? And that is what I am grateful for. And let's get going with what you are grateful for today. I'm grateful. You know what? I'm grateful for the weather. I kind of like thunderstorms and the feeling of thunderstorms coming up. Grateful for the fresh air and sunshine. It was a gorgeous day today. What day is today? I realize now I don't even know what day this is. It is Tuesday, June 2nd. Okay. I just realized now I didn't know if this was a Saturday or a Tuesday. Thankful for my lunchtime walks. It's good, Tracy, that you have designated a time for that. I'm grateful for the farmers. I ate well today, and thank you very much to all of our farmers. They can't hide in their houses. They cannot. Grateful for my balcony to sit on, getting some nice weather. I don't think we're going to have too many problems. It may, around 9 o'clock, they say we may see a couple of pop-up thunderstorms and things like that, but that should be all right. I am very excited to welcome my guest back. You asked me to have him come back, and I have fulfilled your wish. Well, it's my wish as well. And Asante Haughton is a TED Talk, not a TED Talk. You're not a TED Talk. You're a motivational speaker. Let's have a quick listen to it.
The sorrow wind blows, omens of disaster. Black fog overcast on the horizon. Premonitions make my bones shiver. Slivers of light drown in this dark atmosphere, where every day is darker than the last, and nobody's ever present in the silver glass. I ask for better days, but my wish is hollow. No answer ever follows. Bitter regret and sorrow is too much to swallow. Tomorrow never comes here in this dark atmosphere with only sadness and fear. It's clear that I can't see my path. Clash with the devil on my shoulder, fearing the aftermath. Days get colder, but nobody ever gets older. My spirit collapsed from a burden too heavy to shoulder. The more I live here, the more I die. Slowly at first, but faster now. Desperate, my soul clings to the light. As I wallow in the fright of eternal night. Despite my fight, I cannot resist the cold that bites my bones. Whenever the sorrow wind blows. What's up, everybody? How you doing?
That's my favorite part of the talk, is when you go from that very heartfelt poem into, hey, everybody, how you doing? Asante, welcome back, my friend.
Hey, man, it's good to be back. Glad to be talking.
That was done a couple of years ago, and that particular poem is called The Soul Sorrow. Can you explain it a little bit to me?
Do you actually want the background of where that comes from?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I wrote that poem when I was 19 years old. It was either October or November. It was my first year at university, and I was very depressed. And typically, when I'm depressed, is when my best writing comes out.
Ain't that the truth with so many artists, though, is that they do their best work when they're forlorn? I mean, look at Taylor Swift. Every time she breaks up. Sorry, it was a bad comparison, but there you go.
Hey man, I've never been compared to Taylor Swift. I appreciate it. But yeah, I for me that one, it was kind of just trying to encompass everything I've been feeling. So the story is, I had a 6 to 9 English narrative class every Wednesday, and about halfway through the class, I started to break down. So I kind of pick up my things, I leave, I go home, and I start writing, and that is one of the poems that came out of me that night. Pretty much word for word, as you heard it, is how I wrote it. So
A lot of time, you know what though, because we often talk about writing things down and journaling. So if you're going to feel that way, then get it out and put it down on paper. It's better than bottling it up inside. So explain to me what the soul sorrow is.
So, for me, when I was writing that poem, it was kind of just trying to, I'd been experiencing depression for a long time at that point in time, and it was something that I had a lot of difficulty communicating with people. And sometimes I have trouble communicating through regular speech what I'm feeling. So that, for me, was the only way I could really communicate through the metaphors, et cetera, about how it felt to be living my experience at that time.
And you had lost hope.
Yeah, hope is sometimes a fleeting thing, right? And, in that moment, I was at a place of, the thing about being depressed is you don't know when it's going to get better. There's not a X you can mark on the calendar and say that's going to be the day where, I'm going to wake up one day and all of a sudden things just seem a little bit brighter. That's kind of how it happens in reality when you do the work and, all the pieces that come with it. But you just kind of don't know when that darkness is going to end for you. And, a huge part of that coming out of the darkness, though, is, finding hope. And hopefully we get to talk more. I said hopefully. Hopefully we get to talk more about that.
You have given me reason for inspiration since we talked a few days ago, and when you used the H word, hope, it really resonated with me. And we've been talking today, and I've been thinking, and I know you've been thinking about it as well. It's been very heavy on my mind. So, folks, we're going to talk a lot about hope. So, as always, one of the best places to start is to get the official definition. So I looked it up. Hope, a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. So a feeling of expectation, that can be anxiety. However, a feeling of expectation and desire. So you want something desirable. So it struck me as being, isn't this wonderful if we can replace anxiety, which is worrying about something coming up, instead with hope? Wouldn't that be amazing?
You blew my mind right there, man. I never thought about it like that. But yeah, and it's interesting how it's, it's the flip side of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that thing where, I don't know, if you're into sports, you're an athlete, you lose a game and you get down on yourself, or you could take that loss as motivation to, work on some part of your game and get better, that kind of thing. So,
Very true.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying very true.
Yeah, so for me, as you say that, what I think is, even now, because I still struggle with anxiety, like that is, depression and anxiety have been a huge part of my life for most of my life. but I would say I have a better handle on the depression piece than I do on the anxiety piece. So for you to say that actually gives me some advice in terms of how I might better manage, the things that are challenging sometimes for me on a day-to-day basis.
We always want the easy fix, right? We want a pill to fix everything. And when it comes right down to it, when you deal with depression and anxiety, and when you want to replace that anxiety with hope, this is not something magical. This is work. This is work. And you were really telling me that a little earlier this afternoon. This is work, Kevin.
Yeah. That's something I really try to get across for folks. I look at it in the sense of, for me to not be depressed and to not live a life of depression and to have hope, it's an everyday practice. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of things that I've learned over a lot of time in terms of how I communicate with myself in my head, how I communicate with my loved ones in my life, how I bring myself to work and what boundaries I set for myself at work, and work-life balance, understanding what are the things that bring me joy and making time for those things, really making, for me that's not a practice, it's an obligation to bring joy into my life.
Hey, let's throw it to some of our viewers right now. Linda, can we bring Linda's comment back up, Parker? Always remember, it just disappeared. There we go. Always remember, through our suffering, hope is a desire, for we deserve things of joy to come back to us. I love the D word there, the deserve. We deserve happiness. We deserve good things to happen. Linda, very, very well said. You know what? I want to find out too where our viewers are right now. So I put out 4 simple questions today on my Twitter account. Let's get to it. So this is the Hope poll from my Twitter account, the Hope survey. Look how glorious that looks, right? Looks impressive, right?
Love it.
How hopeful a person do you consider yourself today? The majority of people are saying somewhat. At least they're not saying they all seem lost, right? But it's sort of an even split with the remainder. So it's not entirely positive, but people still have hope, and I like to see that.
It's a beautiful thing, and in the times that we are living in now, if you look at, if you add up the numbers, I mean, it's 79% who are not feeling, hopeless. And I think that speaks to the resiliency of everyone who answered that poll. And, it's probably a great representative sample of what a lot of folks in our country are feeling right now, which is to say that it is a hard time, mm-hmm. but it is not a hopeless time.
Mm-hmm. And we are going to talk in a little bit about getting hope back if you have lost it, and with some good advice. Let's go to the next question. Do you have hope that next year will be better for you? We always seem to base, how hopeful we are. Oh, it's going to be better next year, I hope. 47% are we have a fairly positive viewership. And 38% say sort of, and only about 15% say sadly no. So let's compare. How old are you now, Asante?
34.
34. So let's compare 34-year-old Asante with 19-year-old Asante. How would you have answered that question a few years ago?
I would have created my own category, lower than the one that you gave us. So, not in a great place.
Yeah. So how about now?
So I actually did the poll today.
Oh, okay.
And interestingly enough, from a place of extreme honesty, and considering what we were talking about on Saturday with, George Floyd and racism and those sorts of things, I still answered very positively to all of the questions, because I am in a hopeful place, realistically.
All right, Janice just says, that's what I need. I have lost it today. I'm presuming she's talking about hope. So I'm going to leave it to the rest of the viewers on the message board to go after Janice and give her hope and help her out. So there's going to be a little bit of session going on in the background as well as we go to our next question from the poll. And that is, what is the biggest reason that your hope is challenged, whether it's every day or all the time? I thought money would be a lot more of a reason. But coming in number one was the daily news, and that saddens me. It saddens me being a journalist.
My response to that would be, I think that our news outlets have kind of started to focus on the things that are not great.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand we are in a pandemic, and we all know what's going on in North America right now and across the world. However, that does not mean that there are not good things happening, right? And I think sometimes it becomes, for me, I think there's a certain responsibility within the media to, paint the whole picture honestly. And one thing that I think is true about human beings and society is that there's always something positive going on, even when our attention is drawn to the negative. And I think it's great for those who have the power to bring our attention back to the positive to do that. And unfortunately, it does not appear our news media is super committed to that right now.
No.
But this is why we got Kevin's isolated.
Well, this is what happens in the news media, because what we always try to do is we try and be balanced. So we try and show both sides. So if we're going to show some good, we want to show some bad. If we show someone saying something, we want to show the opposing opinion, the opposing view. But unfortunately, media today are more interested in showing the anger and highlighting it, as opposed to showing it in a balanced way. And, it is a very sad situation, and it comes down to ratings, and it comes down to money, of which is, it's a tough time for news organizations right now. And I don't think that media, whether it's in Canada or the US, are doing a very good job at balanced reporting. And you're right. We need to hear the whole story, everything.
It's interesting as you say that. I think about, I think the media has a lot of power in terms of programming us to be drawn to particular images and things. Even as, we talk about what's going on in the States and racism and, not just the States, but in our world, and the power that media has in that. And then I think about, the TV shows I watched growing up and the TV shows that exist now, and the level of violence that just seems to be a part of TV now. And back in the day, there were shows that had action in them, and you'd find violence there. And now today, you could be watching anything, and there's going to be some sort of violence there. And maybe the action has become a draw for folks, but that's because it's what the producers have been putting out and what we've gotten used to. So I think that we have the power to turn the needle back and to focus on the positive story. For instance, if you look at television sitcoms nowadays, they don't necessarily have a message at the end of the episode. And back in the day, everything had a message. The story was being told to send a message.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Beaver. That's right. Gosh, Dad.
Prince. That was like my favorite show. Which was always a message in Fresh Prince.
Oh, in the Fresh, yeah, and it's had a resurgence lately, and I think that one of the reasons it's had a resurgence is because of the lessons, because it had some really good messages in there. We've talked about this before. I've talked about this before with other guests too, though. We sometimes, though, will seek the negative instead of the positive. So we have to look within ourselves. Are we looking for the negative? Are we purposely doing that? And so that goes back to what you were saying about it's work to hope.
Yeah, I think I'm saying I think a lot tonight.
And you're doing the thinker pose too.
Yep. But with that, when you're in a negative mind state and you've maybe perhaps been there for a long time, maybe you've been there for most of your life, it becomes harder to see the positive things. And that's not necessarily at the fault of the individual like going through that experience. I remember I once had an ex, and I was struggling really bad throughout our relationship, and she would always implore me to see the positive in things, and in a way that bringing happiness into my life was a decision I could make. And I said, woman, I didn't say woman, but but I was like, what? I just didn't comprehend it. And then as I went further along in my journey, I started to understand what she meant, which was to open the window for the light to come in. It didn't mean that all of my experience was going to be great, but what it meant was to try to look for the things I can be grateful for. And sometimes those things are small in terms of, I could put food on my plate today.
Mm-hmm.
Or I had, a great 30-second exchange with a neighbor in the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was the best part of my day.
Yeah.
But at least it was a part of my day that had some joy or happiness or positivity attached to it.
Yeah, you got to look for it and you got to work at it. Let's take a look at the last question from the poll. And this question is, how open are you to working to restore your hope? So, folks, the word is working there. The operative word is working. How open are you to working at it? Even split, very open, and okay. 4% of people said, no, I can't do it anymore. I sadly expected that to be higher. I'm glad it isn't. So at least people are still willing, and it goes to what you were talking about, resilience earlier. We get knocked down, we get back up. We get knocked down, we get back up. But there are so many people who get knocked down so much, and sometimes they stay down. So we want to try and reach some of those people tonight and talk about how you can get hope back. And it's possible, right, Asante? It's possible to get hope back.
It's 100% possible. And I think sometimes when we get knocked down, we judge ourselves for how quickly we get back up. So, for instance, in my depression journey, I would say it started around 13 or 14 years old. I did not start to have consistent joy or happiness in my life experience until I was around 23-ish. So that's about 1/3 of my life where I really struggled with that. And I would often judge myself about not being able to come out of the struggle or the quote unquote darkness, or why would I saw other people go through things that were hard and they would bounce back, but for me, why was it taking me so long to bounce back? And I was comparing myself to others and their journey, but it's my journey. Everyone's journey is different, and sometimes whether it's environment or serendipity, the kind of light bulb or the shining through the clouds from the heavens, it takes a bit longer for us to get that and to kind of for it to get through to us that hope really is, it's a thing that you have to go out looking for, and not necessarily a thing that's going to be delivered on your doorstep.
Man, you know what? I never gave the word hope all that much attention until I met you. And so I'm very thankful for that. Okay, stay with me, because when we come back, we're going to take a break for a moment. When we come back, we're going to talk about finding hope again and what you can do. I found some really good advice from one particular person. I want to get your reaction to that, and I want to hear what you tell, especially young people, who have lost hope, and there are a lot of young people who have lost hope. This world has been headed in a bad direction in a lot of cases, whether it's climate change, whether it is financially, whatever, and it has given people. It's a lot harder for our younger people to stay hopeful. So we want to talk about that. So stay with me, Asante. Right now, though, I want to do a bit of business. We have a biz bump for another barbershop. Remember I cut my own hair the other day? Well, let's go to Peterborough for this biz bump. Hills Family Barbershop in Peterborough is just that, a family-run business, proudly with just one chair for personal service until they can open fully. Ryan is offering online haircuts. Book online or over the phone. Clean up your hair a bit until Ryan can open up fully. Ryan'sFamilyBarbershop.com or 705-977-0898. Hey, tomorrow, this gentleman will be here. He cannot miss. His name is Ryan Pawlowski.
Kevin Isolators, you ready for the highlight reel? You know what I'm saying? Make this the best day ever. We'll see you.
And we are back with Asante Haughton, who is a motivational speaker, mental health advocate, and we are talking today about a word I did not give much attention to, but is probably one of the most important words if you're dealing with depression, and that is the word hope. So thank you again for being here, Asante. Interesting article I found today from Lori Lynn Smith, who is a teacher, and she had a number of tips about hope. So I want to go through some of those tips. Let's go to the first one right now. And that is, consider all the amazing things you've done in your life. So if you need some hope, instead of thinking something that you're doing wrong right now, think of all the amazing things you've done in your life.
Yeah, and I want to really focus on amazing and what, for me, that means. For some people, they think about amazing and they think about a grand achievement, an accolade, an award, something that others, idolize them for. Sometimes an amazing thing can be getting out of bed, and you haven't gotten out of bed for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So for you to get out of bed, that was an amazing thing. For me, for instance, I really struggled with agoraphobia when I was a teenager. So there was about 1.5 years, 2 years there where, leaving the house was very challenging for me. And I would get a lot of anxiety and panic.
Now, agoraphobia is the fear of, is it large space or the fear of the out? It's fear of leaving home.
Essentially, but
yeah.
I mean, technically, it's the fear of crowds and
big
large open spaces. Yeah. So anywhere outside. And I really struggled with that. And so for me, when I was going through my healing journey and I was in therapy, my therapist kind of implored me to look at something like that you got out of your house today to get here. that is an amazing thing.
Think of all the amazing things you've done. And we don't give ourselves credit as human beings, too, as to what constitutes amazing. Walking is amazing. Breathing is amazing. Just simply smiling at someone can be amazing. So don't shortchange yourself on what is amazing. Okay, let's go to the next tip right now. And surround yourself with optimism. Sounds easy, but it isn't always easy.
This is a tough one because, and someone said in the comments earlier that, when you grow up, for instance, with trauma or you experience trauma in your life, and maybe you've had a lot of it, it is hard to bounce back. And that is a truth and a reality. And to some extent, that was my story. I don't want to go too deeply into that now because we're focusing on the hope piece.
Folks, I would invite you to look up Asante, Google him, go on YouTube. He has so many wonderful things there, so many wonderful videos. However, he also does really go into his story. If there's a person who was really in dire need of hope, it was Asante. So please, I invite you to do that when we're done here. Continue. Sorry, Asante.
It's cool. I appreciate that, man. I'm very bad at selling myself, so you're doing it for me. But I guess what I was saying is that for me, I didn't necessarily have a lot of optimism in my life in terms of people around me. My world was very small and very isolated, as there were just a lot of challenges happening in my life with my own family and the community of people around me, where we were all kind of experiencing harsh things. Poverty, etc. So where I was finding my optimism was we were talking about it earlier, the media that I was choosing to engage in. At a certain point, I realized I'm engaging in, sad music, sad songs, horrible stories, movies where it end in suicide, but so I kind of changed gears, and started to focus on uplifting stories, inspirational stories. And I would find those things in books and movies. And, The Pursuit of Happiness for me is like an all-time top movie for me. As a young black male growing up, I read the autobiography of Antoine Fisher, who, if you want to talk about trauma, that's a guy who went through it. And to see him come out at the other end and, be a positive person and find love, marriage, a good living, all the things that I never thought were possible for me. So sometimes it can be challenging to find the optimism, and we got to get a little creative, but it really is out there if we go looking for it.
Yeah, and if you were with me a few weeks ago, when we started this thing, one of the biggest pieces of advice that we got from mental health experts, and one thing I wholeheartedly agree with, and this goes with surrounding yourself with optimism, is stop forwarding posts and tweets that are negative. Stop complaining constantly on social media. Stop searching out things on social media. If you have to, block people who are constantly sending you, well, this is this and this is that. So we surround ourselves with optimism, or we surround ourselves with negativism, with the other one than optimism, the opposite. So negativity. So it's our choice. One's gonna make us sad. One's not. So I have blocked so many people in the last little while because it's just constant complaining. And I have muted other people as well. I'll bring them back on when this is all over, but I don't need any more negative news right now. So surround yourself with optimism. Let's go to tip number 3. And again, these are from Lori Lynn Smith, who is a teacher and a speaker, motivational expert as well. Allow inspiration in. That's not always so easy to do. We get a little arrogant sometimes that we know it all.
That's very abstract.
Yeah.
Let's maybe break that one down a bit. So for me, what that means is it's really connected actually to, I think, what we were talking about, to the previous point, where allowing inspiration in is, again, I think there's a certain level of seeking it. And a lot of artists actually say this. Successful artists will say that inspiration doesn't just happen to me. I need to seek it, right? And so if I wanted to write a happy poem, I'm going to seek out, maybe a beautiful aspect of nature, or you know, listen to someone else's happy poem or their story about a positive experience, or read a novel that has a happy ending, and has an inspirational story behind it. Um, so I think for me, that's what that means. And also, I would also add that there are folks who, and not to judge people because I don't like doing that, but sometimes we are in a position in our lives where we'll hear a positive story and we'll say that could never happen to me,
Yeah.
or that's a thing that is unrealistic. And that's one of the words I really do not like, is the word unrealistic,
Yeah.
because if this has always been, you know, a way for me to actually garner hope in my life when I hear inspirational stories or see inspirational stories of others. If that person is on TV, in a movie, in a book, they're still a person that exists. And if that person could pull it off and achieve it, a human being just like me, then I can achieve it as well.
Amen. Amen. Uh, and what happens when you read books about how to get rich? They tell you what rich people do and how they got rich. So you want to follow their example. So why wouldn't you follow inspirational people and allow that inspiration in and follow that example?
That's it's interesting because my life story, and if you watch my TED Talk, you
Hmm.
kind of get a snapshot of it. It's like I really started at the bottom. I don't know about Drake, but no, but I really started at the bottom, and I'm in a pretty good place now. I'm middle class. Don't really have to worry about that aspect of life that much. I have a lot of friends, family, a lot of love in my life, and a lot of folks, sometimes young people, ask me how I did it. And a big part of it was just looking at what people who are good at things do and just doing what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting that we're talking now, because there was a point in my life where I was like not good at conversation, social skills, and talking. And I really disliked that about myself. And I was like, can I ever get better at this? And I kind of surrendered to at least trying.
Yeah.
So I would go out and be a wallflower and look at the life of the party, or the person that seems to, be the social butterfly, and what are they doing? What is their body language like? How are they responding to people? Where are they pausing in conversation? So I was really breaking it down to like the elements,
Interesting.
and I would just copy what they did. And over time, I was able to open the door for me to allow those skills to develop more organically.
Isn't that what kids do when they see a sports person that they idolize? They want to be like, they want to do what they do. They want to handle a ball or a puck the way they do.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I remember being a kid, baseball was my thing, like when I was younger, because I grew up in the time where the Blue Jays were good. And everybody wanted to do that Robbie Alomar, make the diving step, get up, jump, and throw it to first, the kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're always practicing that. Um, and it's the same thing, that's how we learn a language. We learn by observing. A bunch of sounds come out of someone's mouth. You don't know what they mean yet until you make the associations based on body language, objects they might be referring to in the environment, etc., etc.
Okay, what tip are we on, Parker? Is it three or four? Four. Okay.
Might be too much, Kevin.
Parker keeps me honest. Okay, this is really interesting. Spend time in nature. And the reason I say this is interesting is, Asante, we did a show last week in which we talked to a researcher from the UK who was able to confirm that people who spend 2 hours a week in nature reported significant increases in their mental health and their physical well-being. So spending time in nature. I don't know how often you get out into nature, but I know it makes me feel better.
You know, a big thing for me, when I'm down, is to actually just go out to the lake and just look at it. That's
Yeah.
probably one of my favorite things to do when I'm not in a good place is go out to the lake and just be, watch, see, exist. I actually really believe in that. You know, I've grown up downtown most of my life, the concrete jungle, and so you know, I didn't necessarily have access to nature, or you know, sometimes you grow up with this thing like nature that's for you know the folks who grow up in the country. I'm from the city, you know, so there's kind of like almost this you know pejorative attitude toward nature, and but then I started to do it as a young adult. In fact, where it started was 15 years old. I did this thing that they used to have in high school called Outward Bound,
Yes, I
and
remember that. Yeah.
essentially Outward Bound, amazing thing. Essentially, you know, you go canoeing. They drop you in Algonquin Park, and you go canoeing back to your home base, and it's a 10-day trip, and you're camping. You're really roughing it, like everything. And the first 4 days for me were like rough because they took me out of the city, and I'm like, why am I here? You know, I got a high school credit out of it. That's why I went. But by the end of it, you know, when you see the deer run in the forest and the beavers and you know the bears even, it's
Yeah.
start to realize that the world is just not. The world is so much bigger than our own egos sometimes, and that we're connected to nature, we're connected to other things, we're connected to people. And for me, it really, I think sometimes the experience of pain could be one that is very self-centered, and I think nature allows us to decenter
Yeah.
and connect.
And I was looking down because I was just saying, okay, so you're in the city. There are there are a couple of rivers that I like to sit by that you would swear you were in the middle of nowhere. But I mean, I just went on to Blog TO and, you know, Cedar Trail, Mass Trail, Highland Creek Trail, Bluffers Park, Don Valley Trails. The Don Valley has amazing trails. The Moore Park Ravine is one of my favorites in behind the Brickworks. High Park.
Yes.
High Park is an amazing place. We don't give it enough credit, or just simply, and this is one of the other things that this the professor had said, was that even the beach is fine as well. That is nature. So going and, like you said, going and watching the water and just sitting there and watching the water.
You know what's interesting? So my education was in psychology, and part of that was studying the history of it. And back in the early days of psychology in the early 1900s, one of the things that they would prescribe in Europe.
Yeah, and we are really not that far. We're a TTC ride away from some, the Rouge and that. So definitely. Uh, okay, let's get to our last tip right now. And so, again, we're talking about things that you can do to regain hope if you've lost it. And this is an interesting one. Be courageous.
I like this one. Um, so, if you've seen The Lion King before,
Yes.
but,
Simba.
uh,
Just a second. Just a second. Simba. Everything the light touches is our kingdom. Sorry. Okay. Huh? Huh?
that made the night. But essentially, Simba's trying to impress Nala by being brave, and he goes and antagonizes the hyenas, right? And then Mufasa has to tell him that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is not seeking out danger. Courage is really, being cautious about danger, but also courage is recognizing when fear happens and the moments when you need to walk through it and being able to be brave enough to do that. And again, courage for one person might be delivering the presentation at work. Courage for another person might be the whitewater rafting. Courage for another person might be speaking to another human being that day. So we really have to, again, look at what that means for us on an individual level, rather than, you know, you look at movies like the Avengers, and they're fighting evil. Like, we've grown up with this idea that courage means grand things, grand gestures, grand, journeys with impossible odds, and it doesn't need to be that. Courage can be approaching your significant other about something that you hope for, something that you dream, something that you fear, something that maybe they did a year ago, that maybe wasn't a big thing in from a objective standpoint to outsiders, but for you, maybe it dug in a little bit, and courage is going to them and saying, hey, this is a thing that I would like to talk about with you.
Mm-hmm. So I want to leave the last words for you right now, and I want you to talk to people out there who are wanting to be hopeful, wanting to find hope. And this is something that sort of you leave until the end of your TED Talks. So what would you say to someone that come to you, Asante, I need hope. I need hope.
Hey, man, you really put me on the spot.
Yeah, I know, right?
No, I think it's a great question. And, sometimes we think that only young people are asking this question. Mm-hmm. But there are folks who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, older, who are also asking this question. And I think I'd like to answer this in a few ways. I think one thing is to, again, kind of go through your life history and find those moments where you had hope, and maybe where that hope came from. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes we kind of have to do a little bit of a analysis in terms of, I had hope when I was 11 years old, and this was happening in my life, but that hope was predicated on something that happened when I was 10, and something that happened when I was 9, and, do that. But I also think hope can come from, I'm a big fan of stories, as, it might be clear throughout, our chat today. And so for me, I think hope is something that we can find in the stories of other people. And that's probably the place where I most often look for hope, is in the personal stories of others. And one of the things that actually an ambition of mine is to help other people tell their stories. And when I say other people, I don't mean celebrities or folks who we may look at as extraordinary because of the talent they possess, but regular people. Talk to someone who's elderly about their life and the challenges that they've overcome to make it to 75, 80, 85, 90. And if you can't find hope in the story that they tell you, man, I mean, you're gonna find hope in the story.
Yeah. Well, Asante, I am so glad that I've met you. It just, letting inspiration in. We talked about that, and you are definitely inspirational.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that, man.
All right.
From all the years I used to watch you on breakfast television, now we're here.
It's been
so. A big shout out to everyone in the chat. I appreciate the love. I'm just really grateful. I know that me and Kevin were here talking to you now, and sometimes it's easy to see the person on the screen, the computer screen, the TV screen, and think there's some level of distance between you and the person on the screen. But in reality, we're just kind of regular people who have had the opportunity and the privilege, and sometimes the luck to be in the position that we are in, to be able to have these conversations with an audience. And so really, for me, I'm just grateful for everyone who tunes in, and for anyone who might take something out of this. And hopefully you remain hopeful if you are hopeful, and if you haven't been hopeful, you're able to find the hope that you're seeking.
Man, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. I hope our paths keep crossing. In fact, please come back. We'll have you back again soon.
For sure, man. I'm here.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Asante Haughton talking to me once again.
Love it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. And so it's interesting. I'm going back to I'm gonna be a little. It blew my mind too when I thought about that, because it was something Asante had said and talking about hope, and we were looking at the definition, and then it sort of hit me. There's anxiety, and you know what anxiety is. We've talked about it many times before in this program. Anxiety is fear of what's going to happen, and you're certain that it's going to happen. That anxiety is you're thinking the worst case scenario. It's probably not going to happen. Most times it doesn't, but you're thinking that. And then you have hope. And hope is the desire for something good to happen. So what we need to do is we need to replace the anxiety with hope. And you need to do that. You need to work at that. How are you going to do that? And you know what? It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. So you ask yourself, okay, it's not easy, but it's sure better than the alternative. So I invite you to, next time that you start feeling anxious and you start feeling stressed out, think to yourself, how can I turn this into hope? And it's going to be hard at first. It's going to be very hard at first. And you're going to think it's silly. You're going to think it's not working. And then one day it just does. I promise you, if you do that one day, it'll just click. The stars will align. And it's like, that's how I replace anxiety with hope. But every journey starts with one step, right? And you would need to take that first step. So tonight, get away from the negativity. Shut off the negativity. Get away from the news. Watch it a little bit, and I want you to be informed, but it doesn't mean you have to watch it and binge watch the news. Stop complaining. Stop complaining about everything. Think how you can turn the anxiety into hope. So thanks so much for watching once again. I'm so grateful for all of you. Tomorrow we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to do some stupid human tricks, okay? Basically, that's what we're doing. We have the gentleman from Sudbury, Ryan Pawlowski. Can we run that promo one more time, Parker, if we could? About coming up for tomorrow. We're going to do some fun things. Here we go. Hey, watch this. Yeah, he can't miss. And he did this for us.
Kevin Isolators, you ready for the highlight reel? You know what I'm saying? Make this the best day ever. We'll see you.
And then I'd like to, what do you have? What can you do? What amazing tricks? How are you amazing? What amazing things can you do? Can you get a message to me somehow? Whether it's through email, which is kevinsisolators@gmail.com. Message me, tweet me, send me videos. I want to know what amazing things can you and your loved ones do. I have a trick. I don't have a lot of talents, but I have one thing, and I'm going to try doing it tomorrow for you. So that's all coming up tomorrow on Kevin's Isolators. Thanks so much for joining me. Enjoy. Go find a walk. Go find somewhere to walk, unless, of course, it's a thunderstorm where you are. Take care of yourself and take care of each other.
COVID-19, why you do this to me? I really don't like being stuck in quarantine. I have no toilet paper, I don't